10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Week 4 of college football. Last week, I had to kind of sell you that it was still going to be a good week of college football. There wasn't a lot of anticipated matchups or anything like that. This is a week I shouldn't have to do that. We're coming in. This is going to be the most exciting week in college football since I believe 2007. We have 6 ranked matchups. 2 of those are top 15. If you expand that to top 20, we have 3 ranked matchups. So it's going to be an exciting day of college football across the board. And Nick and I are here to get you ready for it so we can lead you out of the tunnel this Saturday morning. Welcome in. We hope you're excited for a great show. We certainly are. Lots to talk about today. Nick, let's go ahead and let's just dive right in. Your Wi-Fi should be cooperating a little bit more than it was last week.
Should
Um,
be, should be.
but 2 weeks ago, it came out Mel Tucker was being suspended for sexual harassment, and he was suspended indefinitely. Looked like more than likely he was going to get fired. And then last Sunday it came out he was Michigan State had begun the process of firing him for cause. So that means there's a Power Five head coaching job already available. Uh, let's talk about some possible candidates that we see filling that role. Nick, I'll let you go first. Who are some names that you're looking out for to take over for Mel Tucker at Michigan State?
Yeah, so I really want to focus on one guy, and he's done a great job at every level that he's coached in. But I like Lance Leopold from Kansas. He's got 3 Division III natties on his resume and turned Buffalo and now Kansas into top 25 teams. Personally, I'm a loyalty guy. So if it were me, I'd kind of stick around in Kansas and see if I can keep building that up. But it's not me, and that's not how college football coaching works. Everybody wants to keep moving up, wants to get to better teams, or whatever. But in my opinion, I think that he's the best candidate for this job. Um, you look at the teams that he's elevated in his time there, and I think that if he were to go to Michigan State, that would um, just catapult them back up to where they want to be in the Big Ten. Obviously, going to take a couple years. He wouldn't come in and be competing for the Big Ten championship right away. But again, we've seen what he's done with Buffalo, Kansas, and I think that if he were to have Michigan State and all that comes with coaching at Michigan State, I think that he could be very successful there.
I do agree that I think he would make a good fit at Michigan State. I just think with the amount of money Kansas threw at him this past offseason and the amount of work and effort Kansas is now going to put into their football team. I mean, they just unveiled this brand new locker room, new jerseys this year, and then now they're working on a multi-million-dollar facility. I think that'll be enough to keep him in Kansas. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe the lure of working in the Big Ten is enough to draw him over. I personally hope he stays in Kansas just because I mean it's fun when Kansas is good and beating teams and
Oh yeah.
not going 1-9 every year. Um, I have a couple candidates I want to talk over really quick. The first is I think the biggest name that Michigan State will go after, either probably after the season. That's Sean Lewis. He's the Colorado offensive coordinator. Obviously, we've seen how well Colorado has looked on offense to start the season. I mean, if they can have a strong finish to the year, his name is going to be in a lot of conversation for Power Five head coaching job. He was the
Oh yeah.
former Kent State head coach. He went 24-31 there over his 5 years. But another, that's a MAC school, so he's already in that area for recruiting. He has ties there, so I anticipate, I think he's going to be a good fit if he can get back to the head coaching position. Staying in the MAC, another candidate is Jason Candle or Candela. Yeah, Candle. Toledo head coach. He's 54-32 in 7 years at Toledo. He's won two MAC titles in his time there. And again, being a MAC school, being in that area already, he has a lot of ties to schools for recruiting. And I think that's going to be a big thing that helps whenever he does get his Power Five chance, because it's coming, whether it's going to be Michigan State or another school. His time is coming to get promoted up there, and having those recruiting ties in the area helps a lot.
I liked him as well.
Matt, yeah, as well. The next one I'm going to talk about is Matt House. He's the LSU defense coordinator. He's a former Michigan State grad assistant. He's a Michigan native, so obviously he has ties to the area. If LSU's defense can continue to perform the way they did last week against Mississippi State, they obviously had the rough start against Florida State. His name can be thrown out for a lot of head coaching jobs that are probably going to open up this year. And the last one I have is a little bit surprising, and it's out there. It's a far reach, but it's Kalen DeBoer from Washington. Now, Washington is getting ready to move to the Big Ten next year. Um, my concern is he really hasn't recruited for the future. I mean, they've put a lot of stake into this year. And they have 14 seniors on the team. Michael Penix Jr. obviously throwing his name into the Heisman conversation looks really good through 3 weeks. I really feel like Washington is all in on getting a national championship this year, getting to the playoffs this year, and I think they've kind of forsaken their future. If you look at the recruiting rankings, last year's recruiting class was ranked number 59, so those are the freshmen this year. Number 59 in the nation. Their recruiting class this year so far is number 26 in the nation. And I know it's a year out, they still have plenty of time, but a lot of schools already have 20 plus commits for 2024. They are number 53 in the 2024 class. So I don't understand how they can have elevate their success so much in DeBoer's first year. They looked really good last year. Normally that leads to a lot of recruits wanting to flock there, and especially making the move over to the Big Ten. Um, I might just be reaching here, and it's probably not going to happen. But just looking at that, it's enough for me to go. Is he looking, is he just trying to build Washington up, have a really good resume, so he can maybe flip over to another school? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But just something that caught my eye, just with the recruiting rankings, and now this job opening. Um, let's topics here. We're going to talk about some underrated statistics or storylines. We're through 3 weeks of the season. A lot of stuff has happened. Some teams have also already played 4 games. Um, but I feel like there's a lot of schools and stats that are getting thrown out right now that don't get a lot of attention. Nick, what is one that you've seen or one that you've been tracking that you don't feel like is being talked about enough through the first 3 weeks?
Yeah, so this is one, and I debated using this one because I have heard some people talk about it, but again, I don't think it's getting talked about enough. The SEC is currently sitting at 5-7 against other Power Five teams, and to put that into a little bit of perspective, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of teams that start out with easier schedules, so there's less games. But when we think about the SEC, if I remember correctly, I believe it's about 40% of players that get drafted into the NFL each year come from the SEC and the Big Ten, and the bigger portion of that is from the SEC. So basically, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of talent that comes to the SEC. I don't think anybody needs me to sit here and tell them that, but for the point of this conversation, there's players there, there's talent there, and this year it seems, and this is going to kind of bleed into the next topic I have to talk about after this, but they're not performing at the level we're used to seeing the SEC perform. And, even though like I can already hear some people, oh, well, Georgia's still Georgia and yada, 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 which, yes, I said at the beginning of the season too. But when it comes to a conference as a whole, when you start getting in a conference play and say Georgia's playing, I don't know, I can't even think off the top of my head, but just say Texas Tech, I don't know, playing somebody. And if they're not seeing that level of competition throughout the regular season that they're used to seeing, if that competition's down a little bit, when it comes playoff time and they're facing, I don't know, a Michigan or an Ohio State, somebody out of conference that might have a little different style of play than what they're used to seeing, it's hard to compete up at that level when you haven't really seen that level throughout the year. Um, so it's going to be very interesting to see if the SEC can turn it around. In the coming weeks as we get deeper into the season. But as of right now, it's something that I'm keeping an eye on, and not to leave the SEC hanging out to dry by themselves. The Big Ten also is not, in my opinion, living up to where I think they should be. But again, I'll talk about that here in a minute.
Yeah. For my underrated storyline, I'm looking at FIU, Florida International. Nobody was talking about this team. I mean, they've went 1-16 in the or from 2021 to or 2020 to 2021. Um, and nobody's talking about this team. A lot of people have picked them to be one of the worst schools in college football again this year. Now all of a sudden they're sitting here at 3-1. Last year they went 4-8. That's great. This is their best start since 2017. They finished that year 8-5. I mean, they don't have an easy schedule ahead by any means. I don't think they've had one to start. This is also a team that could easily be 4-0 if they finish out their game against Louisiana Tech in week 0. That was a great game, but I mean, you know me, I love to talk about the no name schools, the group of 5 schools a lot, and I feel like Florida International deserves a little bit of recognition right now, because again, nobody had them starting like this. Nobody talked about them. Hey, we're 4 weeks into or 3 weeks in. They've played 4 games. Um, maybe they can contend to win Conference USA. Obviously, Liberty looks on another level right now in their play, but shout out to Florida National. That's all I wanted. I mean, they got some pretty cool uniforms with their Miami Vice, but they deserve a little attention for their play on the football field right now as well. So you started to lead into it. So let's go ahead and talk about um, the parity this year in college football and how it's kind of really expressed itself so far. I'll let you lead us in.
Yeah. So I I kind of mentioned it at the beginning of the season. I felt like there was going to be a lot of parity in this season, and so far, the college football landscape has at least hasn't made me look wrong yet. I'll put it that way. But I think that we are about to witness the most competitive year of college football, at least in the last decade. Um, like I talked about, the SEC is off to a relatively slow start compared to what they're used to seeing. Um, the Big Ten, like I mentioned, they have, we've mentioned it already about how Michigan and Ohio State have looked against inferior opponents. Ohio State finally found their offense against Western Kentucky. Um, but, that's not, I'm not getting too impressed yet. And even, Penn State, as much as it sucks to say, they look good against Delaware. But I feel like at least the West Virginia game, they should have put a little more on them, which in the grand scheme of things opens things up for the USCs, the Washingtons, the Florida States, the teams that people might have put in their college football playoff predictions or might have had close. Um, but everybody focuses on again the Georgia, the Michigan, the Ohio State. Bama was getting a lot of love at the beginning of the season. Don't even get me started on that. But my point is the other 3 Power 5 conferences, they have a lot of heavy hitting studs. And there when it comes to, the end of the season, and we're looking back and if somebody has a similar record, maybe Georgia drops a game against somebody. Um, that could give that edge to the USC's. Florida State struggled a little bit, but I think they'll get back on track. I'm not worried about them. Um, but that might give an edge because again, these teams are struggling early on in the season, and when it comes down to it, the teams that weren't struggling and were kicking the crap out of people like USC or even say in Oklahoma, a bit of a stretch, but they're playing good football. You never know. But yeah, I think that college football and the college football playoff at this point is wide open.
Yeah. Um, I would agree that I think after the top 6, I think from there down, there's going to be a lot of change and turnover this season. I think at the end of the day, though, that you look at the top schools. When it comes down to it, it's still going to be a 3-way race in the Big Ten East, and the Big Ten East winner is going to win the Big Ten. It's going to be like that until I think next year they're getting rid of the divisions. But um, you're going to have Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State battling it out. If you look at the SEC, I still think Georgia wins the East just because I don't have enough trust in Florida. Obviously, Tennessee doesn't look very good to start the year either. Um, but I see what you're saying, and there definitely is a talent drop from what we've seen in the past couple years at a lot of these schools, and I think the NIL has helped a lot with this. I think we were finally getting close to the ideal college football parity, and especially with a 14 playoff. The only thing I'm kind of frustrated about is we're going to lose all of this next year when we go to 12 teams. I think going to a 12-team playoff is going to lose a lot of um, edge that a lot of these schools have. If you talk about a lot of schools that got promoted to a Power Five conference, Cincinnati, BYU, all these schools now they get an extra chip. Right now is like, hey, if we can compete, win the Big 12, we have a shot at making the playoff. Where it was a tough uphill climb for us before, especially if you look at BYU, they're an independent school. That made their lives 10 times harder. Um, and I think that, and then you add in, like I said, the NIL, it's even the playing field a lot. And a lot of these
Oh yeah,
kids now that went to Georgia and Alabama before, who just wanted to sit on the bench, and I could go start somewhere else, but I want to come here. I want to get my national championship ring, and then I want to leave. Well, now the playing field is being leveled enough that they don't necessarily need to do that anymore. There still are some kids that I'm going to go here, get my experience, and then I'm going to go somewhere else. I think Dylan Raiola, I think the number one quarterback for next year, who was originally committed to Ohio State, decommitted, and was looking at a bunch of other schools. Now he's going to Georgia. I think that's a situation where he's just looking to go there. Sit on. I don't think he's going to start, depending on if Carson Beck comes back. Um, Georgia likes to stay with the flow. Um, but across the board, I think we're finally looking at the college football parity we've been dying to have with this playoff system, and we finally get it. And then next year we're going to throw it all away, go to a 12-team playoff, and I think it's going to lose a lot of luster. I think we're going to go right back to square one. We're going to have the same 10 teams every year, in the playoffs, and then every once in a while, we'll get like a group of five school to surprise us and sneak in. I think regardless, a group of five schools make it into the playoffs every year, but a really big surprise team every year out of the group of five.
right,
Um, and so I am excited for the rest of the season, but I think at the end of the day, when you look at the head coaches for a lot of these schools, Michigan has struggled to start the year, but they don't have Jim Harbaugh. They've rotated head coaches the first 4 weeks, which I didn't understand. I think Kirby Smart at Georgia is going to get his team under control. They're going to be fine. I mean, they have a pretty easy schedule the rest of the year. Um, Nick Saban is still going to be Nick Saban. He's going to get Alabama ready to play every week, regardless of what that offense or defense is doing. So at the end of the day, I think the top schools, they have the head coaches to consolidate the chaos and keep them above everybody else. But from there on down, I think you have a lot of unexperienced head coaches, a lot of turnover on the rosters, and that's what's going to lead to the chaos from that top six, top seven down, and that's where we're going to get to what's really fun about college football. But at the end of the day, I don't see the very top changing unless something drastic happens.
right.
And for me, that just comes down to the head coaching. So that's where I'm at on that. This week's game of the week is going to be UCLA visiting Utah. This is an exciting matchup. We're going to talk more about this later. But for right now, what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit of the history of this matchup and then talk about our keys to the game for this week. So UCLA leads Utah all time in the series 12-8. They first met in 1933. UCLA won that game 21-0. Utah has won 5 out of the last 6 matchups. Last year, UCLA snapped the 5-game losing streak. They beat Utah 42-32 at home in the Rose Bowl. So, Nick, I'll let you go first. What are your keys to the game for either team to come out of here with your first conference matchup of the season? You need to start on the right foot. Utah's looking to go 3 in a row with Pac-12 titles. What are your keys to the game for these teams?
Yes, so the biggest key for Utah, in my opinion, is Cam Rising. And I haven't seen any official reports yet about whether he plays or doesn't play. But I did see, and a lot of other people have noticed, a shift in the spread I believe it went up another 2 points, if I remember correctly,
Mhm.
which a lot of people are kind of assuming that that means Cam Rising is going to be making his return. Um, and really, I think Cam Rising is the difference between Utah having a chance at winning this game and not. They've been playing good football, but UCLA is kind of catching their footing. Um, they have the ability to put up points in a hurry, and I don't think they're gonna. Even if Cam Rising doesn't play, I don't think UCLA blows out Utah. Utah's defense is still good. They're not going to allow them to score on every drive, but Cam Rising is going to be the difference in having that ability to sustain drives and keep the defense on the field so they can continue to slow down UCLA's offense. Really, that's the big key for me in this game.
Yeah, I have a couple. I'm gonna go over here. I got two for both teams. Um, So first key for UCLA is on defense. They need to limit the Utah rushing attack. Utah's really struggled to get their passing game going, and their running game has been very explosive the first 3 weeks. So they need to slow that down, force Utah to go to a more balanced offense. Obviously, if Cam Rising's back, that is going to help balance their offense out a lot. They're going to be able to throw the ball a lot better than what they have been. But nonetheless, Utah right now is averaging 186.7 rushing yards per game. So if you want a chance, you got to slow that attack down, force them to throw the ball more. The second key for UCLA is you need to keep Dante Moore upright and calm in this game. This is his first, true road game. They did play at San Diego State. I'm not really going to call that a good road environment. This is his first Power Five, hostile environment. It's a conference opponent. He's gonna go in there. He's gonna have a lot of jitters. You got to keep him calm. You got to keep him relaxed. He's gonna make mistakes. He's gonna throw an interception here or there. Don't let that continue to bug him as he goes throughout this game. Keep him calm, and you really need to keep the pressure off of him. I would run a lot of bootlegs here. Get him out of the pocket. Let him use his legs. He hasn't really run the ball a lot so far, um, but I mean, he has looked good in his first 3 games. 62.7 completion percentage, 615 yards, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. So just keep him calm, but most importantly, keep him upright. Don't let him get sacked. Don't let him feel the pressure of that Utah defense. Flip it to the other side. Some keys for Utah is you got to get the passing game going this week. If Cam Rising does play, like I said, I think that helps. But even if he doesn't, they have not looked good on offense. They only have 2 passing touchdowns through the first 3 games, and they played not very good defenses to start the season. They had Florida, uh, Baylor, and then Weber State last week. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception so far. 57% completion, and then 170 yards per game. So they really need to get a balanced attack going if they want this offense to succeed. They've really struggled to start the season so far. So that's my biggest concern for Utah. You look at their defense, last year against UCLA, they gave up 502 yards. So they need to limit the big plays. They also gave up a 70-yard touchdown towards the end of the game, and that kind of sealed the deal for UCLA. So Utah needs to slow down this across the board. I know DTR is gone, and he really tore up that defense, but I think Dante Moore, while he's not as experienced, I think he still has the same ability. So they need to limit the big plays out of UCLA if they want to get a huge win to start the season at home. Even with Cam Rising back, that obviously makes a huge difference. But Utah still has a lot of injuries. I think they have 8 injuries for starters that are out. So that's another concern I have. But I think Cam Rising brings enough experience and the desire to win to carry Utah through no matter what. It is time to do a little trivia this morning. So let me pull it up here. Nick and I are going to do it together. Let me get my screen shared. So this website is called Sporkle. If you love doing internet quizzes, I highly suggest you head over to Sporkle. It is a ton of fun. You can do sports quizzes, movie quizzes, all this other stuff. Show up on the screen. There we go. All right. So Nick and I this week are going to do college football Power 5 nicknames, kind of piggybacking off of what happened last week. But this is pretty easy. So we have 15 minutes. It should not take us all 15 minutes. I really hope it doesn't. But it's going to give us 68 schools one at a time, and we just have to select the proper nickname for that school that's given. But like I said, Sporkle has a ton of fun quizzes like this. This is not a paid ad. I just really enjoy this website. So if you're looking for something to do on Saturday or Sunday, if your team's up 60-0 and you want to kill some time, head over to Sporkle, play some quizzes. Let's go ahead and get started. Nick, I'll let you take the first one. What's Alabama's nickname?
The Crimson Tide.
Okay, all right, there you go.
Okay.
I'll take
Must have been a little
Arizona.
laggy there.
They are the Wildcats. You're good. Arizona
Oh, I
State.
see. Oh, Arizona State. The I can see the logo. Hold on. It went to come out of my mouth. Let me look at the options here. Oh, it's embarrassing. I literally was just reading something about Arizona State last night. Oh my God. Looking at these names is not helping either. It's just confusing me even more.
We'll come back to it. I'll take Arkansas. Arkansas is a Razorbacks. Auburn.
Oh, duh. It's right there. Arizona State is Sun Devils. Oh, Auburn Tigers. Sorry,
Oh, there it is.
I didn't mean to mess you
All right,
up
what's
there.
Auburn? No, you're good.
Tigers.
Baylor is the Bears. Boston College.
Eagles. Or
Boston
I don't
College.
know. What?
I think
Yeah,
I'm
I
pretty
said
sure it's
Eagles.
just Eagles. Oh, there it is. BYU. Yeah, I was trying to find it. Damn.
Oh, sorry.
Chill.
Sorry. Sorry.
California.
Golden Bears.
There you go. Where are they at?
I keep pointing at the screen as if
Cincinnati
you can see me
Bearcats.
pointing at them.
Clemson.
Tigers.
Colorado Buffaloes. There we go. Duke.
Blue Devils.
I was gonna say you should. If you couldn't get Duke, I'd be concerned. Florida Gators. Florida State.
Seminoles.
Georgia Bulldogs. There we go. Georgia Tech.
Mm.
It's a insect. I think they're insect.
I was gonna say, are they the Yellow Jackets?
They are, yeah.
I felt confident about it, and then I
bird?
didn't. I mean, it's close enough to me. I don't know if it technically is, but
Illinois.
Fighting Illini. I don't know. I heard Gus pronounce it last week, and I don't even remember how he
Illini,
pronounced
yeah.
it, but I was.
Gus was off his game last week.
Gus was off
You
his
wouldn't
game.
be in
It's
Colorado
all
for
right.
that again, but
Yeah,
to be in
everybody's
Iowa,
allowed to have a bad game every once in a while.
You got Iowa.
Hawkeyes. See, the problem is I feel confident with these answers, and then I look down where I think the answer should be, and I don't immediately see it, and then my brain goes, "That's not right." Kansas, Jayhawks.
Kansas State Wildcats. I just realized there's like 6 Wildcats. Kentucky.
Oh yeah, there is. They would also be Wildcats.
Louisville Card. Is it Cardinal or Cardinal? I'm gonna go Cardinals. Okay, that's right. All right.
Nice. Tigers.
LSU. Tigers. Go Tigers. Maryland. Terrapins.
Oh, Mayland.
Miami.
Hurricanes.
Michigan. Wolverines. Michigan State.
Spartans.
Golden Gophers. Mississippi State.
Oh God. Oh God. Mississippi State. Hold on. I don't know. I'm lost on this one. I'm trying to figure it out. I know once I figure it out. Oh, that doesn't sound right.
You want to come
Are they
back to it?
Trojans?
No, they're not.
I've never once said Mississippi State's nickname.
We'll,
It's always just
we'll,
Mississippi
we'll,
State.
we'll come back to it. Missouri is also the Tigers. NC State.
It's Wolfpack.
There you go. Nebraska. Shout out to Tony. He's in Nebraska this week. He's going to the Louisiana Tech game. Northwestern.
Yeah, he's talking crap in the comments. I don't even want to. Northwestern. All right, I'm starting to confuse myself now. Huskies. No. No, Northwestern. I told you I'm confusing myself. I seen the purple and I was like, yeah, Huskies. Oh my God. Skip it. I need to calm down. Getting the game time gyps right now. Did you skip it? I told you to skip it. I'll come back to it. I'll figure it out.
We'll come back. Ohio State is the Buckeyes. You got Oklahoma.
Sooners.
Calm me down.
Yeah. Get back in the rhythm here.
There we go.
Get some
All right,
momentum
Oklahoma
back.
State is the Cowboys. You got Ole Miss.
Oh, Rebels.
There we go. Oregon. Oh my God, if I got this one wrong. There's Oregon State.
Oh, I can see it too. I can see it. I don't know. Are they the Beavers?
Big teeth.
Yeah, Beavers.
Yeah. Penn State. Darn, who are they? I don't know. Pittsburgh.
Oh, Panthers.
Yep. Purdue's the Boilermakers. You got Rutgers now.
Scarlet Knights.
Yep. South Carolina, the Go-Cocks. Stanford.
Hold on.
Their mascot's a tree.
Oh,
the name has nothing to do with the mascot.
yeah. Well, that's where I'm lost at here. I'm just looking at the options here. Are they the Trojans?
No.
No, that would be USC. Why do I keep saying Trojans? I'm an idiot. Knights? All I can picture is the tree. Honestly. This is terrible.
We'll come back.
Like you keep getting all the easy ones, and I get like, oh, their mascot's a tree. Who makes their mascot a tree? Because that was my first thought. I was like, Stanford. Oh, Redwoods, and I was like, no, that's literally not their nickname.
You got TCU.
Oh, they're the Horned Frogs. I got that one.
You got the red part right. Tennessee is the Volunteers. Texas.
Longhorns.
A&M is the Aggies. Texas Tech.
Red Raiders.
Red Raiders. UCF is the Knights. All right, you got UCLA.
Bruins.
There you go. Of course I get UNC. Tar Heels. Now you got USC.
Trojans.
There you go.
Now I can get that out of there so I can quit spurting it out after I don't know an answer.
What is Vanderbilt?
I'm going to go with Commodores just because it's the only one that I can't put a...
Virginia is the Cavaliers. What is Virginia Tech?
Virginia Tech is the Hokies. I don't know why that took me so long.
Okay. Wake Forest is the Demon Deacons. Washington.
Are they... I'm trying... Are they the Huskies?
Kind of dog. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Washington.
You confused me. You said kind of dog for a second. I'm not sure why. Mountaineers.
Yeah, there you go. Wisconsin Badgers. All right, back to Mississippi State. You got 3 options here.
Bulldogs. No,
There
that
you
would
go.
be wait. Oh yeah.
Yep. No, you're right.
And then Northwestern
All right,
Cardinal.
Northwestern.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see Wildcats down there. Wildcats.
Stanford Cardinal. All right, there we go. It only took us 10 minutes, not 15.
Only
Take
took
it.
10 minutes. Jesus. Would have been 7 if I wasn't dumb.
All right,
Stanford.
let's go ahead and it's time for our cash out picks. Let's go ahead and look at our records so far this year. If it wants to load.
Are you waiting on
There
me?
we go. All right. No, I was waiting for the thing to load. You're good. You're good.
Oh, I was gonna say because on my screen it popped up, and then am I supposed to be doing something?
No, I think I accidentally clicked it twice. Apologize for the. There we go. Cash out record so far, Nick. You're off to an 8-1 start. We're not going to include the ones that you put on TikTok because I mean that would give us a
Hey,
chance to
listen,
catch you, but we're not.
I started out 0-1. I made up for it last night. It's all good.
Slade is sitting at 3-6. I am sitting at 4-5. Nick, since you're leading the way, why don't you go ahead and give us your picks for this week?
All right, so up first, I got Rutgers plus 24.5. Michigan is 0-3 so far this year against the spread, and I don't expect them to cover 25 points. This is a good-looking Rutgers team. I think Rutgers hangs around all day. They might push this spread. It might be 21 by the end of the game, but I think Rutgers hangs around enough to cover this. And then Colorado plus 21. I debated not taking this one because I don't like when it's a straight even number. I don't know, just bad for the juju. But Colorado has enough fight and grit in them to keep this game within 3 touchdowns. I know that Hunter's out, which don't get me wrong is big upside for Oregon in this game. But I still think that there's enough talent on this roster to again hang around. This is a team that even though they're sitting at 3-0, there's a lot of people out there. I know the majority of the hype is with Colorado. Everybody's talking about Heisman's and Natties, and but that's a little too far ahead. But there are still some people that are doubting Colorado. Again, TCU isn't ranked, and then last week letting Colorado State hang around to go into overtime. People are doubting Colorado, and I think that doubt is going to be enough to fuel a good game. Again, I don't know how long it's going to be competitive for, but I think that they cover this 21 points.
Yeah. Let's look at Slade's picks since he's not here today. He's taking Oklahoma, 14-point favorite on the road against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's first Big 12 game. I think that's going to be a good game. A lot of people are expecting Oklahoma to blow them out. I'm still anticipating a good game, but Slade's going to take them to cover the spread. And his other pick is Texas at Baylor to go over 48.5. I do really like this pick. I don't have a lot of faith in Baylor's defense, and their offense has really struggled to start the year. But Texas is coming off a sluggish week, playing Wyoming at home. But I think I do like this pick going over 48.5. Let's look at my picks. I took 2 spreads today. Maryland, 7.5-point favorite against Michigan State. Maryland so far has outscored their opponents 118-40 in their first 3 games. I brought this up earlier. Actually, I think it was just with you, but they scored 28 unanswered last week against Virginia at home. They were only up 7 going into the fourth quarter, and they win that game by 28 points. You look at Michigan State. They also gave up 713 yards to Washington last week. I don't think their defense is going to be as bad as they were last week, but I still don't see this team being good enough to hang with Maryland. And I think Maryland's going to get a huge win on the road today. My other pick is UNC 7.5-point favorite at Pitt. Pittsburgh has only had 473 yards of offense combined over their last 2 games and 27 points. UNC's offense really looked good last week. We talked about it in last week's Out of the Tunnel. We thought it was going to come down to the running game. Both teams should be able to throw the ball a lot. UNC's defense stepped up. They played really well. They shut down Minnesota's run game and their pass game. They only gave up 13 points. You look at UNC's offense, though. We thought they would still try to run the ball a lot. They did, they didn't have much success. They took to the air, and Drake May just carved up that defense. Minnesota is a much better defense than what Pitt is. So I think UNC is going to handle Pitt just fine in Pittsburgh tonight. So give me UNC to cover that 7.5 point spread. One thing, the next thing we're going to look at, excuse me, is our upset alerts. Nick, you got another outright win last week, so you're up to 4 points. My team did cover the spread, so I'm sitting there at 2. Slade is still looking for his first um, upset alert win of the year. So let's look at this week's picks. Nick, give us your upset alert.
Yeah, so I'm going with Bama. They're sitting at -7 versus Ole Miss. First of all, I think that spread is disrespectful considering the way that both teams have played respectively. If Lane Kiffin wants to take down his former mentor, this is by far his best opportunity that he'll have to try to do it. And Bama's struggling, Ole Miss is rolling. It's going to be a fun game. But I have Ole Miss winning this game, so I think they cover that spread. Looking for another 2 points here this weekend.
Um, Looking at Slade, I forgot to change the name at the top. That's my fault. But he's taking Clemson to upset Florida State. Florida State's currently a 2 point favorite. This is supposed to be an ugly game today. We have a tropical storm rolling through our area. It's supposed to affect the Clemson game as well. Wet and rainy. Florida State has not won since 2013 at Clemson. So they're looking to buck that trend and continue their climb towards a college football playoff. If Clemson wins this game, you could very easily say they could be eliminated from ACC contention. I'm not going to jump quite that far yet, but nonetheless, he's taking Clemson to get a huge win at home today. For my upset alert pick, click on the right one. My upset alert pick, I'm going to take Michigan at home against Rutgers. You just brought this up in your cash out picks. Michigan right now is a 25-point favorite. Rutgers defense has only allowed 10 points per game through their first 3 games. They've only given up 270 yards per game. If you look at Michigan, 32 points per game on offense, 402 yards per game. This is going to be the best defense Michigan has played so far. J.J. McCarthy really struggled last week, threw 3 interceptions against Bowling Green. Not trying to disrespect Bowling Green, but if you're a Power 5 team and you're supposed to have national championship aspirations, people have been throwing McCarthy's name out for Heisman. You can't go out and throw 3 interceptions against a MAC school like that. And I said this earlier, I really don't think the rotating carousel of head coaches, having a different head coach every week at Michigan has helped anything. Jim Harbaugh will be back next week. I think that'll help a lot. But you can't have a different voice every week trying to lead a team. I think that's really held them back a lot. So they have to deal with that for one more week before Jim Harbaugh finally comes back. So I think Rutgers can absolutely cover the spread. And who knows, if Michigan plays like they did on offense last week, if McCarthy's throwing interceptions a lot, Rutgers can score too. Their offense has shown an ability to move the ball, and especially if they're going to set themselves up in short field situations. Who knows what happens at the big house today? But I'm just going to take them to cover the spread at least, like you did as well. Before we get into our game picks, I just want to give a shout out to my 7-month-old son. It's his 7th birthday today. So shout out to Landon. Happy birthday, buddy. I guess you can't call it happy birthday, but happy 7
Yeah.
months of being alive.
Happy anniversary of your birth, I guess.
Yeah. Before we get into our head-to-head picks, here's our updated standings after last night's games. I'm closing the gap. I think I was like almost 10 back at you guys. I had a huge week last week. I went 10-5.
Double check that.
Yeah. But I'm 4 back now. Only 1 back is Slade, who was 1 back of you last week. So he needs a big Saturday here. But you lead the way. You're at 40-18. Slade has 37 wins, 21 losses. I'm at 36-22. So let's go ahead. Let's look at today's games and make some head-to-head picks. First game up, we have Rutgers at Michigan. Nick, who are you going to take in this one?
Yeah, so even though I think Rutgers is going to keep this competitive, Michigan has too much talent to lose this game. But this isn't one of my strongest feeling picks when it comes to Michigan, because I think this is a very losable game for them. Again, that 20+ point spread seems a bit unfair for the way they played, but Vegas apparently really loves Michigan and keeps giving them high spreads, which is why I keep taking them. But yeah, it's hard for me to envision Michigan losing this.
Yeah. Slade is going to take Michigan, and as much concern as I have for Michigan, I think being at home is an extra little advantage. They went on the road to Rutgers last year, and they were actually down at halftime. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I think Rutgers can hang around and cover the spread, but I think at the end of the day, this game being at the big house is enough for Michigan to get the upper hand and eventually win this game. Next game we have is Florida State at Clemson. Nick, who are you going to take in that one?
Yeah, so I'm taking Florida State in that. Everybody seems to have hopped on the Clemson bandwagon again this week, but I haven't forgotten that 3 weeks ago they got blown out by Duke. And no, granted, I'll give them the benefit. It's not the slouch Duke football team we're used to seeing. Um, but still, you get blown out by Duke, and then you want to talk about competing against Florida State. Florida State has had a struggle this year, but I think that they kind of right the ship today. Um, Remind everybody that no, this is our conference this year, and get the job done.
Yeah. Slade is going with Clemson at home. We talked about that in the upset alert as well. I'm going to take Florida State. Their defense is really struggling so far. I think this is going to be a high scoring game, but I don't have enough faith in Clemson's offense yet to be able to overcome situations like this, to hang up or hang around with Florida State's offense. And I think that ends up being the difference. I can see, Klubnik throwing maybe one or two interceptions again, and ultimately dooming his team. The weather could absolutely impact this game as well. If it's wet and rainy, I think Florida State has a better rushing offense. So I don't have enough faith in Clemson yet. But one thing I want to, if you look at this, say Clemson does upset Florida State, how good does that make Duke look? Like it was Duke really that good that they could
Right.
beat Clemson 28-7 heads up, or was Clemson just that sluggish to get started? I mean, Duke has looked good since that game. They really haven't taken their foot off the gas. I mean, if Clemson's able to pull off this upset, I think it's absolutely talk about Duke being a possible ACC title contender the way they played in Week 1. Let's keep it rolling here. Next game we got is SMU visiting TCU. TCU leads the all-time series, 52-42 and 7 ties. Um, SMU has won the last 2 or 3 after losing 7 straight against TCU. Nick, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, this is going to be a fun game, but I think TCU has rebounded since that close Week 1 loss to the Buffs. I think SMU does enough to hang around, but I don't think they do enough to pull it off. I'm going TCU.
Slade is taking SMU. I'm going to take SMU as well. SMU's defense is very impressive at the start of the year here. We do our weekly college football awards. Week 1, they won best defense. If you look at how they played Oklahoma the following week as well, they held them to 365 yards and 28 points. Their offense excuse me, their offense actually outgained Oklahoma. They just had too many turnovers. I think if they're able to limit the turnovers today, they can 100% walk out of Fort Worth with a huge victory. Next game we have, my Ducks play Colorado today. This will be 3:30 on ABC. Nick, who are you going to take in this one?
Yeah, so I'm taking Oregon in this one. I know I took the Colorado spread. I'm not going to say too much here because I don't want to do any more jinxing to your team than you're going to do. Um, but it's going to be Colorado's first real test, and it's on the road. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Slate is going to take Oregon as well. Um, Listen, I'm not going to pick against my team, but I will say the amount of smack talk Oregon fans have been doing all week on Twitter has got me concerned. They did the same thing against Texas Tech, and then Texas Tech almost beat us. I think Colorado does have the talent to hang around. The one thing I think gives us a slight advantage is I feel like we have a better offensive and defensive line compared head to head against Colorado. I think that gives us an edge, and obviously not having Travis Hunter is going to have a huge impact as well. Again, they have the playmakers to fill in, but you can't take a guy who everybody was talking about should be in consideration for the Heisman. You can't take him off the field and expect a little bit of a drop off. And also, Colorado, we talked about this the last 3 weeks now. Their run game is non-existent, and that's really concerning. You need to have a balanced attack. Colorado State was able to hang around with them last week. So those are the things I'm going to be looking at going forward and looking forward to today. But of course, I'm going to take my Ducks to win this game at home. Another game we got this week is Ole Miss visiting Alabama. Nick, who are you going to take in this one?
Yeah, I'm taking Ole Miss. Like I said, this is Kiffin's best shot to date. Um, Again, I think the spread is disrespectful. Um, Really, I think Ole Miss should be ranked higher than Alabama. I just think the AP, they don't like critiquing Alabama too much. But I think Ole Miss is the better team on paper as far as how both teams have played this year.
Slade is going to go Ole Miss as well. I thought about flipping my pick to Alabama once I saw both of you guys take Ole Miss. But we might as well finish the jinx and finish this team off
I was
right.
gonna say the Jinx is only sitting at like 20% anyway.
There was another one. I need to update the percentages, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're 9 and 21 so far. Um, so not the greatest, but still, I mean, the jinx is still there. It looks like we get at least 1 or 2 teams a week.
Right.
I pray to God it's not Oregon, but uh, with this game, like you said, my notes say the exact same thing. This is Lane Kiffin's best chance to beat Alabama. They're going to put Milroe back at quarterback for Alabama, which I think is the right move. They should have never taken him out. But I still, regardless, have concerns. I brought up my concerns with Tommy Reese being the play caller. Um, if you look at the defensive side of the ball for Alabama, they gave up 349 passing yards to Texas. Uh, Ole Miss averages 349 passing yards a game. Now, I won't say Ole Miss is a perfect team. They still have a lot of flaws. And if they can't play a complete game, Alabama can still absolutely win this game. But I just feel like Alabama doesn't have the right momentum behind them. And their offense, even with Milroe back in, they'll be better, but I don't think it's good enough to compete with Ole Miss. So that's why I'm going to take Ole Miss on the road. Next game we have is the first Big 12 game for BYU. They're going to go on the road to Kansas. This will be 3:30 on ESPN. BYU coming off that huge win in Arkansas last week. Kansas really struggled against a bad Nevada team in their game last week. Nick, who are you going to take in this matchup?
Sorry. Um, yeah, so as you're about to find out, the Jack Wagon Sports crew is fully back on the Kansas hype train. So I'm sorry in advance to Kansas for this. But BYU is no slouch, and they've been playing some really good football. Really, I think this is, I usually have 1 or 2 games in a weekend where I think it comes down to home field advantage, and this is one of them this week. Um, that Kansas Stadium is going to start rocking. We seen it last year. I believe it was around this point. I forget who they played. I want to say like TCU, something like that. But I think that stadium is going to be rocking, and that's going to be enough to kind of just barely push them over BYU. So you won't hear me say this often. I'm going to say another thing later that you won't hear me say often. But go Jayhawks. I'll say that during football season. I ain't saying it during basketball season.
Yeah, Slade is going to take Kansas as well. Um, I took Kansas, and this is what it came down to. Is like I said, BYU, a huge win for them. They go into Arkansas, an SEC school. A lot of people were high on Arkansas again this year with KJ Jefferson returning. They go in there and they win that game.
I got tired of
Kansas,
being high on Arkansas.
yeah.
They let me
Uh,
down every time.
Kansas, they went on the road to a very bad Nevada team, a Nevada team that got blown out by an FCS school, and they really struggled to move the ball and put Nevada away in that game. So I said I'm gonna flip a coin, and I reach into my coin jar next to me and I pull it out, and I didn't even flip it. It was a Kansas coin. I said, you know what, I got to take that's got to be a sign. I got to take Kansas. So it was a coin flip game, but as soon as the coin said Kansas, I was like, that has to be a
Right.
sign that I need to pick Kansas. So I'm taking Kansas. So congratulations BYU on your huge victory in the Big 10 or the Big 12. Next game is also in the Big 12 as well. We got Texas Tech visiting West Virginia. This will be 3:30 on ESPN Plus. West Virginia, a huge win against their rival Pitt. Texas Tech, slow start to the season, but they got it on track against an FCS school last week. What do you have happening in this game?
Yeah, so I just want to say West Virginia is better than a lot of people give them credit for. Not a lot better, but a little better than what people give them credit for. But Texas Tech is going to make it hard for them to move the ball for 4 quarters. And I'm expecting low scoring, low slugfest, low punching each other in the mouth, which I think plays very heavily into Texas Tech. So I'm going with them.
Uh, Slade is going to take Texas Tech here as well, if it wants to load. Um, And I can't pick against Texas Tech again. This is still my pick to win the Big 12. I know they have a slow start to the season, but if you look at both of those games, they lost. I mean, they were in it the whole way. Who knows where Oregon's going to go from here? I think the Week 1 loss at Wyoming was just a little shock to the system. Um, but I still think we're getting the conference play here. It's a fresh start for your season going forward. I think that's enough to propel Texas Tech back up, towards the top of the Big 12. So I'm going to take Texas Tech to win this game on the road. Flipping over to the Tupac, we got Oregon State visiting Washington State. I am really disappointed that this is their first conference game. I know it wasn't going to be the last. Obviously, you have the Apple Cup for Washington State, and the rivalry game between Oregon State and Oregon. You can't call it the Civil War anymore. Um, but I really wanted this later in the season. Nonetheless, both teams are now ranked inside the top 25. Nick, who are you going to take in this game?
Yeah, so there's usually one game a week that I somehow miss while I'm doing my notes half asleep, and this apparently was the game this week. So I don't have a whole lot to say, but I will say I love Oregon State. I think they're gonna keep climbing. This is gonna be a great game to watch. It's gonna be very entertaining. Um, it might come down to some sort of last second heroics, but I got Oregon State.
Slade is going to take Oregon State as well. Um, Not a lot of people are talking about Cam Ward to start the year. I mean, people were very high on him coming into 2022. He struggled a lot. He has improved a lot. He looks very good. That Washington State offense is averaging 535 yards a game. Oregon State has 466 yards a game. But I think at the end of the day, the Oregon State defense makes a difference. This defense is what's going to keep them in Pac-12 title conversation and also possibly the playoff conversation. This is a very good Oregon State team. I think they're built for a playoff run this season. Uh, but like you said, this is going to be a back and forth game. I think it comes down to a last second field goal or last minute drive, possibly even overtime. I think the game's going to be that good. Um, but I'm going to take Oregon State as well. And then just to update you, so the Jack Wagon Jinx is sitting at 9. We've jinxed 9 teams so far. 22 teams have survived. That's a 33% jinx rate. um, Next game we have is a group of 5 showdown. It's going to be App State going all the way out to Wyoming. This is the third ever meeting. They're split this previous 2 games 1-1. App State beat Wyoming at home last year. I think App State is becoming a dark horse for New Year's Six Bowl. If they can get over this hump, as of right now, their only loss is to a very good UNC team in double overtime. If they're able to run the table from here on out, who knows? We could be talking about App State and the New Year's Six Bowl rather than Tulane or Liberty. So something to keep your eye on going forward. So Nick, who are you going to take in this matchup?
Yeah, look, this was a tough one. I mean, Wyoming, we're not used to talking very good about Wyoming, but they've been playing some good football this year. App State, again, they're only lost to a very good UNC team. Um, I didn't notice this when I was looking through. I must have accidentally skipped over it or something. But if I had seen this earlier, this probably would have been my nominee for Game of the Week, which I know you would have loved. But I have to go App State in this. I think that this is just a position that App State is used to being in. Wyoming, sometimes when you're used to, not winning as much and you start playing really good, you can kind of get ahead of yourself. I do it in golf. Like every single time I'm out there, every time I start playing good, I start thinking I'm Tiger Woods. And next thing you know, I look like, I don't know, but terrible. Trash Woods. That's what I look like. But anyway, I think at some point Wyoming is going to get ahead of themselves. And, they're at home. They're going to be feeling the energy of the crowd. And I think that's a good opportunity for App State to kind of take advantage of, that little extra jitter that comes along with that.
Slade is going to take App State as well. This was a difficult game for me to pick as well.
It almost came down to a coin flip. I almost flipped the coin.
App State has obviously looked very good to start the year as well. But so is Wyoming. They beat we just talked about, they beat Texas Tech. They go on the road last week to Texas. Texas is coming off this huge win at Alabama. Maybe it was a little hangover, or maybe Wyoming is just that good. But they hung with Texas. I think it was tied at halftime, or they were down by 1 score. It goes into the third quarter. They're down by 7 at that point. Unfortunately, they throw a pick 6, and then Texas kind of pulls away from there. But this is a very good Wyoming team. I don't think enough people are talking about them. Everybody's still looking at the Mountain West. Like, Boise State won last night. They can still win it. Fresno State has obviously, I think, stolen a lot of the spotlight because they've beaten two Power Five schools so far. Wyoming is quickly becoming a favorite to win the Mountain West. And I think this game being in Wyoming ends up making the difference. So I'm going to take Wyoming at home to pull off this win. This could easily become another double overtime game for both teams. They've both already played in one so far. Wyoming has won theirs. App State lost theirs. Um, but I think Wyoming is proving that they are one of the best teams in the group of fives this year, especially with what they did on the road at Texas last week. Um, Next game we got is Ohio State visiting Notre Dame. Um, College game day is there right now. Ohio State leads the head-to-head series all time 5-2. Notre Dame hasn't beaten Ohio State since 1936. Nick, who are you going to take in this game?
All right, look, this was another tough one. I like a couple matchups on both sides of the ball for both teams, but I get a little hate mail from your side of the family every time I pick against Notre Dame, and for me to have to go through that and picking my least favorite team in college football, it just that math doesn't add up. So again, I told you one more that there was going to be one more instance of me saying something that you might never hear from me again. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. I might gag a little bit, but go Irish.
You're going to take Notre Dame. Slade is going to take Ohio State. Um, this is another game. There might be weather impacting it going forward. This is going to be the 7:30 kickoff. The storm is kind of supposed to be flickering through this area. It's not supposed to be an absolute downpour, but weather can still play a factor. Um, Ohio State, we had mentioned earlier, finally looks like they have their offense on track and playing well. They've struggled the first two games they come out against. Granted, it's Western Kentucky, but still, they played Youngstown State the week before, and their offense still didn't look good. Now they show up against Western Kentucky. McCord was throwing the ball really well. They made a lot of big plays. Um, my other concern is Notre Dame. They travel to Ireland in week 0. They come back. They played 4 straight games. They have not had a break since they came back from Ireland. Usually, a lot of teams will take a break after they travel overseas to play a game. Notre Dame has not done that. Are they starting to get a little fatigued? They struggled early in that game against Central Michigan last week. They end up pulling away late. But is that a little fatigue starting to show? That's a concern for me as well. Um, but I think at the end of the day, if it is raining, if it is a wet, sloppy game, I think Notre Dame has the better rushing attack. Obviously, Ohio State has a very good rushing defense, but I don't think they played a running team like Notre Dame has right now. And so I think if it's wet and it's rainy, it's sloppy, I think Notre Dame's ground attack gets them over the hump here. I think they finally beat Ohio State for the first time since the 30s, and it's a huge day in South Bend. And even if Ohio State loses it, if this game can stay close, as long as it's not a blowout either way, neither team is going to be eliminated from the playoff race, and I don't think they should be. And I think Ohio State, like I said, is just heating up. If they go on to be undefeated from here, they're still in the playoff conversation 100%. Notre Dame, same thing. Notre Dame has a schedule left. They still have to play USC, Duke. They play a lot of good schools this year, so it's going to be interesting to see how this game finishes and where the schools go from here. Next game we're going to look at is Iowa at Penn State. This is the whiteout. This is where I make my annual case that Penn State should wear white jerseys for the whiteout game, or at least get like a special jersey, like a cool jersey. Not necessarily their Paterno throwbacks or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't just wear their basic home jerseys. I don't like it. It annoys me. That's
Right.
my one gripe about the whiteout game. So I guess
Right.
they're doing something right.
I mean,
if that's
all white would make sense,
yeah.
but
Um,
or even throwing a gray because like they don't have nothing gray, and I love me some gray unis,
yeah.
but Penn State don't ever do that.
Great.
Well, I don't know about never, but
Yeah. Regardless, let's go ahead and make our picks for this game. I really hope Brett Musburger and that CBS crew is the one calling this game. But nonetheless, this will be the first whiteout game broadcast on CBS. Nick, who are you going to take? Tell me why you're taking Iowa.
yeah, right. No, so I'm gonna go with Penn State. It's the whiteout against the Hawkeyes. It's gonna be a fun one in Happy Valley. I don't care what Tony says over there in the comments. I got to stick with my boys.
Slade is going to take Penn State as well. I thought about
Oh,
trying to
and
save you. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to add on here. This is the game that Drew Aller announces himself to the country.
Okay. I thought about taking Iowa to save you guys from being jinxed here,
We
but
jinxed Oregon. You
I was
might
gonna
as
say you
well.
all took Oregon, so I'm taking Penn State. Might as well.
Yeah,
But no, for my notes here, I wrote down. Good thing Iowa scored 41 last week because they aren't even touching 20 points this week. This is going to be the best defense Iowa plays all year. Penn State, my one concern for them, and you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, their offense looked like it had found rhythm. All of a sudden, they go to Illinois last week. They had really good field position for almost an entire game. The Penn State defense forces 5 turnovers. Penn State's offense didn't capitalize enough on that for me to be like, "Yep, this is a national contending team."
right.
Maybe it's just their first conference game. A little rust they need to shake off, but I'd like to see more consistency out of that offense. But I think this is the environment, everything that this game brings. It's not going to be enough for Iowa to even come close to competing.
Right.
So I'm going to
If
take
this game was in Kinnick Stadium, I'd be worried.
yeah. But yeah, I don't see Iowa cracking 20 points. And now that I say that they're going to score 41 again somehow, and it's
Right.
going to be
Right.
a shootout.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Our game of the week this week, we already talked about a little bit, is UCLA visiting Utah.
That was beautiful.
This will be 3:30 on Fox. The one thing I'll say, so when I made that video, there was no clips of Chip Kelly like celebrating anything at UCLA, like any of their bowl wins, nothing. I couldn't find like even a video of him walking the sideline. The only videos I found on YouTube were him just like giving interviews like in a press conference booth. And I was like, I can put that. So I had to go all the way back to 2012 and find clips of him winning, or I think it was 2011, the 2011 Pac-12 championship game against UCLA. And I was like, whatever. So that's what
Right.
we had to roll with. Who are you gonna take in this game, Nick?
Yo, speaking of that video, I just wanted to say I didn't realize how beautiful of a backdrop Utah had for their stadium. I seen that, I was like, yeah, a little sunset. Yeah, that's nice. But with that being said, um, again, this comes down to Cam Rising. I've been trying to find. I still haven't found an official report. Probably going to be something that comes out game time. I think if Cam Rising plays, it's going to be Utah. I'm picking Utah to win this game. Just kind of betting that Rising is going to be playing. Um, but again, it's going to be very competitive. If he doesn't play, I have to give UCLA the edge. But for the sake of the pick, I'm going Utah.
Slade is going to take Utah as well. I'm going to go opposite here. I'm going to take UCLA on the road, even if Rising plays. And he won't have any rust to shake off. He came back hurt last season. He looked good to start the year. Um, at the end of the day, though, I think the injuries around Utah outside of Cam Rising is kind of what's going to hold them back ultimately. UCLA has looked very good on offense to start the season. Again, this is going to be the first hostile environment that Dante Moore goes into. If they can just keep him calm, if they can limit the turnovers, UCLA can absolutely be in this game late. And I think UCLA is going to come out of I forget the town that they're in, but UCLA is going to come out of Utah with a huge victory. And I think, and I'm tired of jinxing all the teams this week, so I also had to mix it up a little bit. But I think this is definitely a game that UCLA can win going forward, and it's going to be a fun matchup today, 3:30 on Fox. That will wrap it up for Out of the Tunnel for Week 4. We thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. Next week we'll be back again, get you ready for Week 5. Don't forget, Blitz Boys, our weekly podcast, comes out on Thursday here on YouTube, and then also wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all of that fun stuff. So make sure you guys check that out as we wrap up we'll wrap up week 4. Also, we're going to start putting out more content throughout the week. Monday, we're going to release a stock market like video. We're going to tell you if we're buying or selling college football team stock. Tuesday is our weekly award show. We've been doing that on TikTok only. We're going to expand that over to YouTube so you guys can see that here as well. And we're going to have shows throughout the entire week except for Friday and Sunday. But we hope you guys check that out and enjoy the rest of our content. Go enjoy week 4. Go watch some college game day and get you ready. This is going to be an exciting week. We talked about earlier, 6th ranked matchups head to head. It's going to be a lot of fun. We will see you guys in the next video.
See ya.